So this is the Casio G-Shock TFC and the MRG. And yeah, if you are a G-Shock fan, if you are a square G-Shock fan, you are going to know what these watches are. You'll probably recognize them straight away. These are very good. I mean, what I'm holding here is the G-Shock, the Casio G-Shock MRG-B5000. This is the top of the top. It's the most premium Casio G-Shock square that Casio makes. It's the best. It really is the top of the pile. And what's absolutely brilliant today, I have all three. Look at these. This is the black DLC MRG-B5000 with gold ion plated visual interest pieces like the back plate and the push buttons and the screws. I mean, look at that, the attention to detail. We've got a gold switch for the G-lock thing there, a gold ion plated titanium back plate, gold buttons and gold screws, and the gold visual interest on the dial there. I mean, that is really, I mean, there is a reason why they call this watch the stealth wealth, because it's the price of an expensive Swiss watch, that's for sure. And you know, these are expensive, but they are made out of the best watch materials that money can buy. This is made of titanium. With a Coberian bezel. This thing here is the actual bezel part is made of Coberian, and you can just see how that looks with this grey top here. It looks absolutely fantastic. But saying that, I think that the silver one is. I'm going to close that there. The one thing about titanium, when you close the clasp, it makes this lovely, satisfying closing noise. You know, like closing, a luxurious car door. I don't know if you can hear that, but it sounds so good. But what I wanted to show you is how this natural titanium color. Listen to the click. So good, with the grey shirt there. I'm just going to put it back to automatic. Focus again. Now look at that. It just is. I mean, the option is you could wear an Omega Seamaster, or you could wear a Rolex Submariner, or you could wear a Casio G-Shock MRG-B5000 titanium square like this. What are you going to wear? Because I was actually thinking about this the other day. And I thought, if I was going into a business meeting and I had the choice of an Omega Speedmaster, a Rolex Submariner, or this, which one am I going to put on for that business meeting? And instantly my thoughts were, I'm going to wear the MRG, the titanium square G-Shock. I mean, I really came to that decision within a moment. I did not have to think about it. And look at the competition there, an Omega and a Rolex, and this wiped the floor. It took me a nanosecond to think to myself, I'm wearing the MRG. It feels comfortable, and it's got a little red line around the dial. And actually, this red line in the sunshine, if it hits the sun, it sort of shines, it glows, more so than it does in the TFC. The TFC has a more solid red line around the screen there. Now the reason, actually, before I go on, the reason that these three watches all have a very similar color plate of the dial is that the original 40-year-old design of the Casio G-Shock Square looked like that. I mean, this design is 40 years old. You are looking at something that was designed by Kiku Ibe 40 years ago. And this in particular looks identical to it because it has some red text there. And that's exactly what Kiku Ibe, I think that's how you pronounce his name. That's exactly how he coloured the original watch 40 years ago. But once again, the original watch had a plastic resin case here, but it did have a metal stainless steel case there. This has an iron-plated DLC version of that, and it has an iron-plated DLC treatment to the bracelet as well. So all these watches are full metal, although this one has so this is known as the MRG-B5000, and it's known as the full metal square, and is one of G-Shock, Casio G-Shock's most successful watches that they've ever released. The bizarre thing being, the design is 40 years old. Now, in actual fact, Rolex and Omega would have the exact same claim, because they still have watches today that look like the parents of the same watch 40 years ago. They have changed slightly, quite well. Yeah, they have changed, but the design signatures are still very clear. But with these Casio G-Shocks, the design features are identical. The changes are very minor. With all these watches, the changes are really the materials and technology used, because each of these has a Bluetooth module. It's solar powered. It has a stopwatch. It connects to your smartphone, so it is very high tech. The original didn't have all the Bluetooth and technology in it. But with these two MRGs, not only have you got all that technology built in, but I think they've gold-plated some of the connectors on the inside for better connection to your smartphone. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. But what they've done with the MRG is the screen is actually a sapphire crystal, where the screen on the MRG-B5000TFC, this one here, it's a mineral crystal glass. Now, you know, looking at it, you would never know that. You know, you just wouldn't know that these have a mineral crystal glass. And that's one of the things that G-Shock do. And also, this case, it's constructed of 25 pieces. And as you can see, this corner piece here is actually made up of separate parts, where on the classic full metal, it's actually a solid case construction. Now, but the design is identical. And once again, you wouldn't really know that. At first glance, you would only notice the gold detail and perhaps the white colouring here. And also, you might quickly think that this one is slightly better looking, or you might think this is better looking. But they are quite different, because this one is stainless steel, DLC coated. This one is titanium, but DCL coated. But also the bezel and the case is made of 25 parts. For example, on this one, the bezel is actually part of the case, and on the MRG, the bezel is actually a separate component made of cobarium that's attached to the case separately. And I believe there are springs and shock absorbers inside there. So, I mean, it's really amazing, the technology that goes into the manufacture of these watches, and what they do. And someone like me, these are all out of, let me get them in camera once again. But the reason that it's a little tricky for me is I'm not actually looking at the watches, I'm actually looking at a viewfinder, I'm actually looking at a screen. and so I can see my hands on camera through the screen. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, I've completely lost my train of thought now. I was chatting about the premium nature of these watches and how different it is from the original. Now I know that someone, you know, could say, "Hey Stephen, this is great, but where's the original?" Now I don't have one of the originals, but if you were to type in DW hyphen, I think it's then straight, it's just 5000, DW-5000. You will see originals of this watch that date back to 1983, and you're going to be shocked because it looks identical to this, but it's made out of resin here. But the screen looks almost identical. This actual dial is slightly better today, that's noticeable. And this metal bracelet is added. The original one had a rubber bracelet here, but the design and the general aesthetic looks exactly the same, and that's what's really quite amazing. And I suppose Rolex, Omega, and G-Shock share the exact same longevity, really, because their best products that they make and sell are actually they were actually designed, conceived, yeah, once again about 40 years ago. You know, that they're still selling watches that were designed generally, the general design is 40 years old. So this is really, you know, an interesting thing, especially in today's fashion, where, you know, Apple smartwatches and Google smartwatches, you know, they have a shelf life of about 2 years. You know, it's quite, you know, people expect within 2 years that the thing's going to be outdated and you're going to need to purchase, you know, the latest version. But with a watch like this, my goodness, in 10 years' time, this is still going to be awesome, and it's still going to be a very desirable watch that you are going to want to wear for all occasions all the time. There's no doubt about that. It's, you know, are you going to want to wear a 10-year-old Apple Watch? I can't see that happening, although it certainly might, especially when you think of interesting things like the vinyl revolution. You know, music today, and most people obtain that through the internet, and it's in digital format. But there's a lot of collectors out there and enthusiasts that go out and purchase vinyl records, you know, the round spinny records. So we know that nostalgic products do come back, and they really enjoy popularity that way. And I think that these watches are going to have an endless popularity. And I think the fact that they are still making them today and they sell like hotcakes is testament to that. And these watches are all very expensive. This is a limited edition model, and I think these two, the MRGs, are limited by production. But you know, these have all sold out, these watches, and you have to pay premiums now on the grey market to get them. You can't buy them brand new anymore. And I imagine that, yeah, I suppose this is another issue. You know, why on earth do we have this scarcism in the marketplace around certain objects? And maybe that's because, you know, that's what's needed, and it's why people like these things. But there you go. And I was just thinking to myself, which is my favourite? And initially, I was certainly gravitating towards the silver, because I thought to myself, this is the same sort of colouring as a Rolex or an Omega, and with a suit, a white shirt, or today with my grey top, it sort of matches, it looks very, very nice. And I don't know, for some reason I gravitated towards this. I mean, when I say silver, it's like a dull grey stainless steel. It's actually a colour that I really like. These, you know, you could call them black, but in actual fact, they're not really black. It's a dark grey gunmetal colour. If you look, if you put these next to something black, there's definitely a difference, and it's actually a colour that I prefer. I love this dark gunmetal colouring. I think it's lovely, and in particular, but where I think this one really stands out is the gold contrast. Look at that, the gold titanium IP coated components here, which means that that this colouring has been impregnated into the material. So even if you were to scratch it, number one, the process is very hard, so you might not scratch it. But even if you did, it would still be gold underneath. I was told though that the titanium components are actually gold all the way through, so the whole alloy has been coloured. I don't know if that's true, but it would be sort of cool if it was true. But anyway, if the ion plating or the plating that they use simply introduces this colouring into the surface and at the same time makes the surface very hard, I suppose you're achieving everything that you want to do. Anyway, that, I think I'm going to say ciao for now, and leave you with a shot of the Casio G-Shock MRG-B5000.